and welcome to Divisive Issues. We're having a bit of a different schedule change this time around.
Darryl has declared a national emergency.
Yeah,
We're supposed to have the annual ready for you guys.
Yeah. Woo! Ultimates 2. You guys excited?
Yeah. You should be excited because we're not going to do it tonight. Because you have to keep that excitement until next time.
Yeah, please keep your excitement. Yeah, Phil's out on vacation and he has audio files that I need to edit the episodes. So instead we're doing an emergency.
It's Tuesday night. It's 9 o'clock.
Yeah.
Darryl has to edit this.
If you listen to this on the day it came out, we are talking to you from like 10 hours ago.
Yeah, this is the most modern, up-to-date content we'll ever deliver for you guys. So be appreciative.
Yeah, and we were trying to figure out what we should do, like off the cuff, like an emergency episode. And the best thing you can do is like do discussion-based stuff. And I was thinking that we haven't really had an episode where we actually sit down and just talk about the Marvel Universe, which is how most people know about these characters.
The Marvel Cinematic Universe, specifically.
Yes.
No, the Marvel Universe.
Okay, so let's talk about the comics again. I guess what you like.
Yeah.
So first thing I want to ask is, since we just wrapped up with Captain Marvel, like doing 2 months on her, is anyone excited for the Captain Marvel movie?
I'll go first. I am super excited for this movie. And one of the reasons why is because I feel like the Marvel movies do a really, really good job at getting to the core of the character and shaking off the continuity that gets in the way sometimes. Like, you look at Thor, you get this core, like, sci-fi, half magic, half sci-fi world of this, like, bombastic warrior character, but you lose Don Blake. You lose all the weird parts about that. And, I feel like the movies do a really, really good job at adapting it for a modern audience while you still, like, you watch Captain America and you're like, I understand what this character is about. Whereas when you watch, like, Man of Steel, you're like, I don't really get what Superman's going for here. You know what I mean?
He wants to kill all the Krypton's babies. That's what he's doing.
Yeah. So I feel like Captain Marvel, I'm really, really looking forward to it because I haven't been a big fan of Carol as Captain Marvel. I feel like the movie will get to the heart of it without, like, necessarily getting the messy continuity or, like, the forced event tie-ins of, like, Civil War II derailing her character and everything. And I think that's where the movies excel, is taking a bunch of comic book stuff and, like, I don't want to say diluting it because it's still very comic booky, the Marvel Universe, but in a way that is, like, very digestible, where I can't necessarily show someone a movie on why I love The Flash, but if somebody's like, what's the deal with Iron Man? Iron Man 1, by the end of that, you're like, I understand why people like Tony Stark, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I understand Iron Man.
Yeah, exactly.
I am Iron Man.
Yes.
I am.
What about you, Sly?
So,
Are you excited for Captain Marvel?
I am. Half of it is because I don't know if they can cut to the core of Captain Marvel because it's such a mess of a character. So I'm curious how they accomplish that. And number 2, I actually got the movie spoiled for me. Be careful looking at the Funko Pops. They actually spoil the movie for you guys.
Oh, man.
Whoa, what a way to have something get spoiled.
Yeah, so the Funko Pops spoiled a major plot reveal in the movie, but it actually made me really, really interested. It's a twist you'll only know if you know Carol Danvers, so it shows me they're diving deep into the character, the twist they're pulling off.
That's very cool. What about you, Darryl? Are you excited?
It's kind of like this lukewarm excitement. It reminds me kind of like of getting ready to see like Doctor Strange and being like, I want to see this just because I've read material based on him. I'm like, how do you handle this character in movie format? But I'm not like in love with the character. I'm not like, this needs to be a thing. I want to see this. I'm more so just like, I just have no goddamn clue how you go about creating a movie where I'm like, right, yeah, like they hit Carol Danvers, like they nailed her perfectly.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
just.
I guess we'll have to see if they figured it out.
So what you're trying to say is that you don't like it because Brie Larson doesn't smile enough in the trailer, right?
No.
Okay.
I don't like it because at least from what I've seen, I haven't gotten the chills of like where Carol's like gonna mess me up. Because you read those comics and you're like, oh my god, she would kill me if I like complained.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of Carol Danvers I want to see. I want her to kill someone.
I'm also, one of the things I'm really curious about too is seeing how because like Marvel put off having a woman lead for such a long time.
Yes.
And like I'm really curious on how they differentiate it from Wonder Woman. because like Carol's a very different character, and like the setting's completely different, and like I'm not saying like, oh, they're women so it's going to be the same, but like because Wonder Woman was so successful and was the first one out, I want to see how they differentiate. It's the same thing like when I saw Aquaman, it was very interesting seeing how they differentiated it from like Thor and Black Panther, which were very similar concepts and characters, but done like very differently. And I always find that really interesting, is how do they differentiate it without being different just for the sake of being different?
I can't see how Wonder Woman and Captain Marvel are the same. Besides the fact it's the first female superhero from their respective, they're very different.
That's kind of how I feel too. Like I get what you're saying about like that the similar beats and how they will differentiate themselves over time, but it's like I feel like you have a lot more hope in Wonder Woman, or at least like from watching that movie, that's the feeling you get from this is hope for humanity, which I'm like, do you like, is the Kree race struggle embodying the hope of humanity? No, not really.
Yeah, I mean,
ever.
like, obviously thematically they'll be very different, but I just mean like there's just certain things that I feel like it's going to be impossible to avoid comparisons from, whether they're justified or not, like I remember like when Black Panther
it's
came
the same
out,
thing as soon as the DC has the first black lead in a superhero movie, you're going to get Black Panther comparisons.
Yeah, exactly.
On the other hand, what was this? Spider-Verse came out, and that was completely different from Black Panther. I feel like it's going to be the same. I think the comparison is going to be that they're both female superheroes, because I'm actually wondering, because like Wonder Woman was so different from all the movies around it. It was, first of all, it was a period piece.
It was good.
It was good. It was also very grounded.
DC good. We should clarify.
Exactly.
Except for the third act, it was very grounded. The third act goes a bit more superhero-y, but Captain Marvel inherently feels it has to go more superhero because she's like the most over-the-top hero Marvel has had so far.
She's from like space.
Yeah, she can go Super Saiyan basically. Like you see in the trailer, like no other hero can do that in the Marvel universe. No one's that powerful except for Thor. But even he doesn't go fly around shooting down armadas and I haven't seen Thor
and even
3.
then she's like based kind of like half in Earth from the start, rather than like here's a strange god coming to our world. It's like, isn't she supposed? Whatever.
Well, that's what like,
I don't even know. I don't even know what the plot of the movie.
Yeah, I have no idea. And like one thing is, I'm really excited not to get like super political because we try not to do that so much anymore. But oops.
Well, now we have to bring Oops I Talk Politics back here because we talk politics and we can't have no show to talk about on.
We gotta raise your guys' hype for the eventual comeback in 2070.
But one thing that like I'm really excited for is like when, even though like I'm guilty of doing it just now by like bringing up these comparisons, I'm really excited for there to be two strong female superhero leads, so that every time we judge like how a woman was portrayed in a superhero movie, it doesn't have to be compared to Wonder Woman. And it reminds me of like, when you talked about like female presidential candidates, everyone was always compared to Hillary, and now there's so many running that like it's nice that we could talk about it from a more nuanced perspective than just like, well, are you like Hillary or are you not like Hillary? And now,
to be fair, you could always compare them to Elektra or Halle Berry's Catwoman too.
Yes,
oh my god, that's
that if anything really proves my point. And like I'll be really excited to see how like I just want more diversity and depth in the leads, and like that's one of the reasons why Black Panther was so great, that it opened the door for that. But like I'm really excited to see like you said, Sly, with Spider-Verse, it didn't have to be like, look, there's a black lead in a superhero movie. We could just like, it didn't have to represent something larger than what it was trying to, and I think it really excels in being like a not grounded, but like you get to see just like a more just like he's just a kid, and it doesn't
very
have
relatable,
to be like,
very a personable story.
Yeah, he doesn't have to mean everything to everybody, and like Wonder Woman's one of those things that had to be like this archetypical woman superhero movie, that now I feel like Captain Marvel has more freedom to not have to tell every story at once, I'm looking forward to it.
Which I don't even think it's I mean, who knows what this
movie.
Well,
who knows? The trailer does highlight the fact she's a woman, saying, see.
No, but like I'm not saying they don't have to. Yeah. I'm not saying they have to hide it or anything, but like they don't have to be like, not everything is riding on this as like it was for Black Panther and Wonder Woman. Yeah,
exactly.
Doesn't
be the defining feature going forward. Going forward, we could just have female heroes that just exist and they are female heroes.
Yeah. And they don't have to be sidekicks and supporting characters. They can actually be leads. Yeah.
Taking a step back from the Captain Marvel movie, I think it'd be interesting to discuss what our general feelings are about the Marvel Cinematic Universe and what we thought when was Iron Man the first movie that jump started it?
Yes, literally was. That Shield, it was supposed to be just a one-off, and then that Shield reference at the end was like, let's use that and go.
Yeah, when Nick Fury's like, "Welcome to the Avengers," or like you know stuff like that. Yeah.
Originally, Samuel Jackson didn't want to be in the sequels. Like they had to basically like give him tons of money. He was just supposed to have like they didn't sign up anyone. Like originally, the reason why Terrence Howard is in Iron Man 2 is because they were so disorganized at the time. Like his contract was higher than Robert Downey Jr.'s, and he wasn't signed on for a second contract, so they had to renegotiate his contract. And he's like, "No, I'm not taking a huge pay cut. Fuck you," and he left. So
well, I mean, Robert Downey Jr. got super lucky because they took a big risk because his career was kind of like in a big slump. That he actually got a percentage, not a flat rate. So all of a sudden, he was in the highest grossing movies ever, and he's making like this insane amount of money.
Yeah.
So what were you saying, Darryl? Yes, Iron Man was the first.
It's just like how you feel, maybe like back then versus now, or whether or not like. Do you see this as a completely self-sustaining model, sort of like with Star Wars, where you just get used to a Star Wars release every year? Is it you're going to get used to like Marvel blockbuster releases like twice per year?
Well, one thing that I want to give the context for is when the Marvel movies started coming out, I was like a strictly DC reader. Just because I just like it wasn't like I was avoiding Marvel. I just started with DC and just hadn't gotten.
It's
to
interesting
Marvel
to think there's a time of your comic reading I completely forgot about where you weren't reading Marvel.
Yeah, and actually, most of the Marvel movies, like pretty much all of them until like well after Avengers 1, all of those were my first real exposure to the characters, which is like so shocking to say now. But like I didn't know anything about.
What a casual.
Yeah, no, I like super was. And like I thought Iron Man like was a robot because of the Black Sabbath song. Like when I saw Iron Man 1, like for real. And like I'd never read a Thor comic before seeing Thor. Same thing with Captain America, like all these things. And the movies were like, I can't give a better testament to their success than me being the biggest nerd in the world now. I feel like it was really, really great to see the world through that lens the first time. And like now, I don't know what to say other than like it super worked to sell me on every concept that they had. And for a while, I was kind of like convincing myself that I was like, they're coming out too frequently, they're gonna spin their wheels too hard, or like they're being too ambitious. And then I kept thinking like every time I saw a Marvel movie, I left loving it. So I kind of stopped being like, this is too much, this is too much, this is too much. And I'm just like, no,
this is unsustainable.
This is just like for me. Like I remember, how are they gonna pull off Ant-Man? How are they gonna pull off Guardians of the Galaxy? How are they gonna pull off Infinity War? And eventually I was like, why am I worried? Every one of these is great. Even the ones that aren't like amazing are still like, I still leave really enjoying them. I don't think there's a bad Marvel movie.
Yeah, they're all entertaining.
Yeah. What about you, Sly? You've always been the big Marvel, what do they call them? Marvel zombies or something? People that love Marvel the most?
Marvel lights.
Marvel zombies.
That's the thing.
True believer. True believer.
True believer,
Really?
sure.
Yeah, that's what Stanley always called them.
Excelsior.
When the Marvel movies came out, Iron Man was kind of like my nerd dream come true when it came out. And I never thought there would ever be a Captain America movie, a Thor movie.
What about the 70s Captain America movie?
I thought that would be the only attempt they'll ever make at it, and for good reason. Cause
it could be because I just love Captain America since I grew up reading a lot of his comics. So I thought there would be like a Captain America movie in the future. I didn't think anyone would be interested in a Thor.
The reason why I was Captain America was more likely than Thor for sure, because who the fuck knew Thor before the movies? Thor's such a,
whereas like Captain America fighting Nazis is like a pastime.
he was like an iconic figure in the World War II era. Like he was a big seller back then.
Yeah, like Thor has never been like the biggest book on the shelves.
Yeah,
who's like, I'm just waiting for that Thor movie to come out back in like the 90s.
And that's coming from someone who's a huge Thor fan now. But like, he's not the X-Men.
I also think Thor's a weird sell because he's a Norse mythology, but he's also Marvel's unique spin on it. So it's always a weird sell, and I was impressed they were able to pull it off.
Yeah, and I feel like Norse mythology has never been like a big seller Hollywood-wise, being like, we're gonna base something on Ragnarok.
And if you were a big Norse fan, you would have wanted to see Marvel's take on it.
Yeah.
But keep in mind, before like Marvel Universe, all the only good superhero movies were like the actual big name ones, like Spider-Man, Superman, Batman, and X-Men. Like they tried like Daredevil and Fantastic Four,
Ghost Rider.
Oh my god, Ghost Rider.
They tried all these movies. They always sucked because they were more like.
Didn't Ghost Rider get a sequel?
Yeah,
it did. The only fluke victory was Blade. But for most part, they just never lower tier characters never got the attention.
And even when they had like a good movie, like I think the Thomas Jane Punisher movie is really good. Like it still was always these like cult classics.
Yeah.
They weren't ever like big blockbusters.
Yeah, it was a low budget movie too, very low budget.
Exactly.
I think it was like $1 million, something like very crazy low budget for that one. So, and even like Iron Man, Iron Man's an example of like what the landscape was, because no one really gave a shit. To the point that original Iron Man script was supposed to be Iron Man versus his dad, and his dad was War Machine. Like, names were interchangeable.
Oh.
Characters, they would just use like recognizable names and slot them into whatever bullshit script they wanted, pretty much. And that'll be your.
They thought that's what people would want to see. It's like, look, War Machine, even though it's his dad.
Yes, that's not fucking Rhodey, the character who actually defined the actual identity.
And like Iron Man was so like unexpected that I saw Denny O'Neil give a lecture in college who created Ironmonger, the villain of Iron Man 1, and he didn't even know he was in the movie until he got a royalty check, and he was like, "Oh, I guess this is a movie. Cool."
So not only was Iron Man probably the most faithful superhero movie up to that point, it teased that the movies are going to start doing what like fans always fantasize about. Like, well, what if the X-Men met the Spider-Man in the movies, stuff like that? But now they're actually going to start doing it with Iron Man meeting the Hulk and all these other characters. And you had Tony Stark making a cameo, Incredible Hulk, all this other stuff.
I remember how big of a deal, like, when Avengers came out that was, where it's like, you have all these pre-established characters all going to meet on the big screen together.
And I remember, like, when everybody thought it was going to fail.
Yeah, everyone
like,
thought it was
I remember even us, Sly, I think we saw it together in college, and we were like, there's no way they're going to be able to pull this off. And then we left and we're like, how did they do that?
And more important context, and more context for that. Remember X-Men. The X-Men films are pretty much Wolverine films starring the X-Men. It was assumed assumed until Avengers, like Avengers movies, you could never have equal screen time for every, like, not even equal, because obviously there are disparities in the screen time of like Hawkeye for certain characters. Yeah. But they at least showed gave highlights and scenes of these characters acting cool. In X-Men, you maybe get like Colossus for like one scene in X2, and that was it. He left the movie after that. Goodbye, I'm gone. But like Avengers showed that you could have an ensemble superhero movie, like multiple characters are the main character of the story, not just one character. Everyone else is the guest starring in their solo movie, basically.
Yeah, and like the team dynamic can carry the characterization. You don't need just like one origin story or one coming of age story, because like Avengers doesn't have any origins in it, and that's like crazy, like at the time that's like, how do you like nobody thought that could happen. And the thing that's so fascinating about the MCU is that they really had to get it right, because they only made these movies because they didn't have rights to any characters that people cared about.
Yeah, so they have to make you care about. That's not a thing about it, but because they have to make you care about these characters, they weren't just resting on the laurels. Like
Batman vs Superman is like that, where it's like you just are gonna see it because you already know Batman, you already know Superman, and let's watch them fight.
Yeah.
Whereas like you have to like.
Whereas here they don't have to rely. They can't rely on X-Men. They can't rely on Fantastic Four.
Yeah. Or Spider-Man, and
Spider-Man, right?
Yeah. So and that's the thing is like people forget that like Iron Man and Captain America and Thor were not characters that most people knew.
The reason why Civil War was structured the way it was, with Iron Man being pro-registration, was because no one really knew what to do with Iron Man around the time. So it really didn't matter what impact that would have on his book, even though it made his popularity among comic fans tank at the time. A good example of that is in the 90s.
Oh, hell yeah, The Crossing?
The Crossing. There's an event called Avengers The Crossing. Iron Man, there's so little idea of what to do with Iron Man. He was considered such a negligible character. They actually had him turn evil. The Avengers fought him, and they had to go back in time and find a young Iron Man to replace the current Iron Man.
Not just a young Iron Man.
Teen Iron Man.
Like a teenager.
Yeah, like they got, because they're like, what do we do with this Iron Man character? What the fuck? We'll have teen.
Isn't that kind of what they did with Cyclops?
Yeah, that's
but it's also dumb when they do it with the X-Men.
Yeah, and we were talking about this off mic, because X-Men is now finally they got the rights to Fox and Marvel have been coming to agreement. I forget what the current status quo is. Like, did they resolve it or?
I think Disney's buying all the Fox IPs.
Yeah. So, but now that X-Men is relevant again, now they as soon as X-Men became relevant again, they got rid of all the teen fucking time travelers. They immediately got rid of it. Like it's a sign that okay, now we can start caring about this property again.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm going away now.
Well, I mean, for what it's worth, it's
so
the
dumb.
head of Marvel is this is a personal friend of Trump and this huge Republican petty asshole that he literally would Photoshop X-Men and Fantastic Four characters off of iconic logos and stuff when they made T-shirts because they're we're not giving Fox any publicity.
Yeah,
that's so stupid.
Yeah, and he also they only have one bathroom for the entire building, something like that. So people would use the bathrooms much and shit like that. Very draconian.
That is some very rude shit.
Yeah,
that's one thing that's always tough is because I super love the Marvel movies and you mentioned Star Wars and stuff, but Disney acquiring all these things is super scary, and it's really hard to walk that line where I'm you're doing such a good job with these IPs, but you're doing such a bad job with the world.
As Joe always puts it, it's gonna happen anyway. I'm glad it's Disney doing it, and I get to see my favorite characters fight each other. So
if I'm to be ruled by a tyrant, I want it to be Mickey Mouse.
And so I gave all this hype to the MCU movies to segue into the fact that I have grown into fatigue with them personally.
That's surprising because I really haven't at all.
It's not necessarily fatigue of Marvel specifically. It's just fatigue with all these movies coming out in general. There's a 100 blockbusters every year now, and it's hard to keep up with any of them. I mean, back in the day, they'll be I remember X-Men First Class, when that came out, there was Thor came out the same year, X-Men First Class came out, and Captain America came out the same year, and I was whoa, you got 3 major releases in the same year. That was a big deal at the time. Now that's nothing. Now it's 50, and I'm I literally can't keep up with this many movies at the same time.
It's gonna be, I think Captain Marvel comes out in a week or two, or something very soon. And just this year, we've had Spider-Verse, Aquaman, Captain Marvel, and Shazam is about to come out too.
Yeah,
and it's February.
and it's superhero films are the obvious the hot new thing, so all the blockbusters are focusing on them, but it's just a general glut of blockbusters in general. Spielberg and George Lucas talk about it, how they don't think the current Hollywood model is sustainable, because it used to be you have one big movie a year to pay off the losses for your smaller movies, but now every movie coming out is a big movie.
Yeah,
very small.
Well, as long as they keep making the money back, it's there's no reason for them to stop.
But Spielberg and Lucas say eventually there'll be diminishing returns, and you're putting so much money into a movie, it'll just take one gigantic big enough bomb to crash in the entire studio. That's what happened in the 80s or something.
I mean, I don't know. Justice League bombed, and then Aquaman did super well. So I don't necessarily buy into that theory.
Well, they're older filmmakers. Who knows what that's true? I think it's true just because of eventually things grow too big over time. There's a finite amount of money in the world. You can't expect.
Yeah. Sly has an inherent cynical outlook on every industry.
I think that's very fair. But one thing that I think is the reason why I don't really worry that much about that is because if let's say in 5 years the Marvel movies really slow down, they go back to 1 a year or whatever. Until they make a crappy movie that feels like a cash grab or phoning it in, I don't really care right now.
Right.
Yeah, even if it's unsustainable, I've still thoroughly enjoyed every single one, and they keep getting more and more ambitious. That sure, if this is unsustainable and I'm only gonna get this many good superhero movies for 2 years, so what? I'll enjoy the ride,
Yeah, you're right. As purchasers, the fucking politics behind the camera doesn't really fucking matter. And this was a point of segue. I'm sorry. I was just.
I think it's a valid point though.
No, it's fine. It's fine.
That's a very common thing. Is can you really do this forever? And probably not. But you know what? I still love seeing them.
I think there's Sly speaks some power to the idea that superhero movies aren't as special anymore as when they were first coming out. Because I remember being super stoked for. But this was, I think, back in 8th grade for the Spider-Man, Sam Raimi's Spider-Man movie to come out, and I'm this is so cool, Spider-Man in a theater format.
When X-Men was coming out, they would Fox.
Yeah, I was hyped for X-Men.
Fox would have specials tune in fucking Wednesday after fucking Simpsons to watch a sneak preview of X-Men, and I will fucking the whole week I'll be so excited fucking shaking my seat to see a fucking sneak peek of fucking Mystique in live action first time and shit like that.
But I mean, the thing is with stuff like that, I think that's more just a transition into our much faster paced digital.
Yeah, definitely.
Because when the Captain Marvel trailer came out, or the Infinity War trailer came out, or the Endgame trailer came out, that's like all the internet talked about for a few days. And like, yeah, it wasn't as hyped as like the Super Bowl spot or whatever, but like that is still a thing. It just happens in a day instead of a week. Yeah, but I kind of take that as just the way it is now.
Yeah, but to buttress Darryl's point a bit, that is why I don't see every single Marvel movie anymore.
I will never forgive you for not having seen Ant-Man and the Wasp yet, Sly. You're like the biggest Ant-Man fan in the world.
I'm sorry, I failed you.
I'm sorry, you've shamed him too much. You forgot all the stuff.
I was just gonna say, like, Ant-Man was a good example because when it came out, people were saying this is a nice break from Avengers. And I'm like, I can wait to see this later then because.
Yes, that is a really good point because I saw Ant-Man and the Wasp, and like with so many of these movies, I'm like, this is like really like nice and it's neat, but I still remember walking away from like the first Avengers being like, wow, that was like really amazing to see. And I almost kind of feel that way with Infinity War, where it's like, this is such a crazy how they put everything together.
Yeah, that's definitely.
That, like, I walked away really amazed from that, whereas like Ant-Man and the Wasp was like, this is good. And I walked away from Ragnarok being like, hey, this is good. These aren't things where it's like, I feel like the urge to really talk to them with other people.
Yeah, Thor Ragnarok is another one I didn't see yet, so people can tell me.
I love it a lot.
But
yeah, it's a good movie. Yeah. Like they're still putting out really high quality stuff, even if I feel like kind of like Sly, like I don't blame him for not seeing them because it doesn't feel like you need to see them. But if he does watch it, he'll enjoy it.
I'm not saying this because fuck those movies are garbage. I'm never gonna see them. I'm saying this because
we've only had Sly say that about DC.
Yeah. There's such a glut of good movies that I feel like I can take my time with. Yeah, because that came out like a busy summer season anyway, and I was like, I've seen the movies this summer. I can chill for now.
I think that's also fair, and that's also, I think, to me, like, a nature of, like, current media. Like, we talk about this with comics all the time, is there's, like, the events that we, like, have to read because they tie into everything, and, like, you know, we... Like Heroes in Crisis, which we talk about on our Patreon, is another example of, like, a book that is important to the DC universe, so, like, we should be following it, even if I hate it, where there's a lot of comics that, like, we actually talked about this a little bit, Sly and I, off mic, trying to plan Captain Marvel episodes, where we were like... This is good. These are good comics that I enjoy reading a lot, but are they good for the show? Not necessarily. And I feel like it's okay for some movies to just be good and fun, and they don't have to be that huge, you know, around the water cooler thing. And I like that the superhero movies are diverse enough that, like, Ant-Man is just like a fun heist movie. And
most a movie just being like an enjoyable romp is what most people, most casual moviegoers want. That's why like, Transformers make big money. Like I know it makes like movie buff fans like annoyed, like oh these shallow Marvel films. But the reason why it's successful, the same reason like fucking Robin Hood and like Tarzan movies in 1940s were successful. People like pulpy, like fun, just adventure romps, and like the more demanding audiences will be like, oh, this is...
if everyone had to see multiple Infinity Wars per year, you wouldn't be like, wow, this is like it wouldn't be special anymore.
I like the quieter, more personal movies, but like I also completely understand, like I'm not like Sly, you have to see this in theaters, where something like Spider-Verse, I was like pretty adamant to people, you should see this in theaters because this is something that you should experience now.
Yeah, Phil, to quote Phil said, I'm so glad I saw this in theaters. So Darryl, if you're waiting out...
Poor me.
If you're waiting for DVD with your family, maybe don't...
I mean, it'll still be very good. It'll still be very good. But like,
too late.
But like, you know, like...
I wanted to see Infinity War in theaters for all like the beautiful sounds, but I didn't. It's too late for me.
But like, something like Ant-Man and the Wasp, I'm like, Sly, you should see it for your personal taste and love of these characters and specific reasons. I don't think it's a movie that, like, everybody has to rush out and see.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
You know, I feel like, to get back to, like, the difficulty with, like, the MCU is there's so many of the movies come out, or at least it feels like a lot of the movies come out, that you can't tell what you might, like, personally find really interesting. Like, I absolutely love Spider-Man Homecoming. Like, I was so glad I watched that, and I would not have seen it potentially if I wasn't that invested in trying to keep up with all the MCU lore.
But that's the brilliant thing about the MCU, because a lot of people are. I saw a lot of like I saw Doctor Strange, and I would have seen Doctor Strange anyway, but like only because I'm a big Doctor Strange fan. But if I'm a casual moviegoer, I would probably skip that movie.
But that's the difficulty, is because like I watch Doctor Strange, I'm like, this is neat, but that's not like something where I was like, wow, like I really love.
I'm gonna watch that again. I will never watch Doctor Strange again. I'm pretty sure. In my life.
Whereas, like, with Homecoming, that really resonated with me. And for a lot of other people, I know people love Ragnarok.
Yeah, I know.
And it's like, that really resonates well with
that's
them.
That's why MCU thing is really clever, because it really makes films that would just drop off the radar be somewhat relevant. And not everyone's going to agree which ones are good, but everyone's going to see them and probably have an opinion on a strong opinion on one or two of them. Like, a lot of people, like, I remember when anime was released, it was doing poorly when it first came out, and like word of mouth carried that one. But like, that was a movie no one expected to do well. Same thing with, I think, Captain America. Captain America, with the first one, it actually, when it started showing up on Rotten Tomatoes, it was at like 10%, and it slowly climbed all the way up to 70%. Like, it was like the true underdog story, worthy of Captain America himself. Seeing critics being like, "Well, you guys are being too tough on it. I'm not like this movie," and slowly going up to fresh. I thought it's like it's interesting, because otherwise, it'll be just, it's just another fucking movie no one looks twice at. But because it's part of this larger narrative, people are giving them a second chance just to see what the pub is about.
And also, in that same vein, I feel like they can take a lot more risks. Like, the Guardians of the Galaxy movies were very risky to, like, you know, you have, like...
They're very different feeling from
they're very different feeling. It's like, they're these weird niche that I know, like, not everybody likes, but, like, I'm a big fan, and, like, a lot of my friends are, like, they're their favorites.
They're my sister's favorites.
Yeah, they're my wife's favorites. And it's interesting to see, like, that not everything resonates with everybody, where, like, I think my favorite MCU movies might be the Ant-Man movies, and that's, like, very surprising to people, but I like how
my favorite is Ant-Man 1.
Yeah, it's so good.
Fight me, bro.
But, like...
Sly, why haven't you seen Ant-Man 1?
One reason is because it's a very different set of circumstances, because it is Adam McKay doing it on his own without Edgar Wright's script, so I'm nervous it's not going to live up to it. And from the word of mouth, it doesn't sound like it did, so I'm like, I can maybe wait a bit.
I think if you like really interesting, fun, size-changing stuff and Hank Pym, I think you will love the movie.
Okay.
But that actually segues well to one of my other points that I wanted to make is one of the things that I think is so successful about the Marvel Universe is we talked a lot about in the Ultimates episodes last year, and spoilers, we will talk about this again next year, is that a lot of times the comics will have these big character-defining moments that ruin characters that the MCU has done a very, very good job at avoiding in a way that, like, maybe it's to, like, you know, PG up the universe or whatever, but, like, they make the characters, I think, like, more, not more likable, but, like, they clean it up a lot. Like, Hank Pym is one of those examples that, like, in the comics, he is known for beating his wife and creating a supervillain, and the movies don't have that, so he's just, like, kind of an asshole who's a hero at heart. And, like, Tony Stark has done a lot of bad shit in the comics. Like, you know, Civil War, we've talked about a lot.
Yep, so much so that a younger version had to have him
like,
had
there's,
to replace.
and there's, like, a lot of...
so dumb.
Wait,
the flip side of his argument, though, is something like Doctor Strange, where all the weird comic stuff is what makes him fascinating, and making him just another superhero kind of drained him or made him unique.
But
I was gonna say he felt a little too much like Tony Stark from his movie.
That's definitely fair. But I would also make an argument that, like, one Doctor Strange movie, you know, when you compare it to, like, early comics before, like, it started getting more ambitious,
he has to start there. He has to be Tony Stark in the beginning.
No, but my argument would have been because, like, because the original origin was in the original comics, the original origin was a flashback. They didn't dwell on his Tony Stark in the comics at all. So, like, what I would have done is have it be Clay as the main character, being his apprentice or something like that, and he tells her his origin to set up why, like, Baron Mordo will be the main villain with maybe Dormammu backing him up, and, like, he'll tell the origin to explain that. But I don't think you need to go to step by step, because his origin was never as crucial to his.
That's fair. But do you feel that way about other characters in the MCU, or is it kind of like just Doctor Strange?
Doctor Strange is a special case because by himself, his origin is like you could have made an exception for him specifically because he is not that interesting origin wise. He is just Tony Stark.
But, like, overall, I feel like when you have a universe that's been around for as long as the Marvel Universe, like, you know, 50, 60 years, characters, when bold writers come in and change status quos and everything, sometimes it does lasting damage to the legacy of the character that they can never shake, like Hank Pym being the most extreme example, where, like, you can, or we talked about also, like, the New Warriors at the beginning of Civil War, when that school blows up, you know, and all those kids die. That's something that franchise will never be able to overcome. They will always be defined by that.
Yeah, this for, like, what was this, 18 years since there's just been the team that killed everyone at school.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that, like, I feel like the MCU does a very good job at, like, cherry picking where they like. Yes, Tony Stark has struggles with alcoholism, but it's not his whole personality, you know, like, and a lot of those things that, like, Captain America doesn't have all this baggage of, like, all the problems he had during Watergate.
This is actually a really good point, and it ties into what we're going to do next week, Ultimates 2. Because Ultimates 2 is the inverse of that. Ultimates 2 was, one reason why I hated Ultimates when it came out, and I mentioned this, everything up prior, was I fear like these would become the mainstream versions of the characters. Yeah. And they're all the stereotypes of what the characters are. Like Tony Stark in all the universe just like, I want to just fucking swim in a pool of booze. I love drinking.
Yeah. It's like the dark cast perception of these characters. Like every character's every superhero's negative aspect.
But it is because it's Mark Millar, but it still feels like what a non-comic reader would write the characters as. Like I could imagine a film screenwriter saying, this is obviously how these characters should be in the film because they're so over the top. Like it will translate so much better. You have super drunk. You have this conservative dumbass Captain America. Yeah. You have this hippie Thor. You got to make these main characters. While the Marvel films were the other way. They tried to show some. They stripped away all the events that define these characters, like Tony Stark becoming a booze hound. Yeah. How Hank Pym beating his wife, and they focus on what defines the character. Like Tony Stark is a fucking playboy. Captain America is like an underdog character in the first film because that's what he was set out to be. He was like this scrawny guy who wanted to fight for his country, and he didn't give a fuck how he did it, and that spirit is what drove him. And so they boiled the characters down to the essence instead of doing what Ultimates did, is what really is a mainstream perception. Like Captain America in Ultimates is what people thought Captain America, who didn't know Captain America, thought Captain America was. They thought he must be a right-wing asshole because it was like the Bush years, and obviously Captain America would be pro-America, Bush asshole probably.
Yeah. And that's one thing, like, I was talking to somebody about, like, they were asking me questions about Iron Man in the comics, and, like, I have a lot of great Iron Man runs, and I really love a lot of Iron Man comics, but, like, if somebody asked me, what's your definitive Tony Stark, I would say, like, the movies. Same thing like Captain America, like, Chris Evans to me is Captain America, and, like, I would recommend, if you're interested in the character, starting there instead of starting with, you know, like, a specific comic run, and I think that really speaks to the testament of how much care they took, where they didn't just want to make money with these characters. They wanted to expose the country and, you know, the world to why they loved the characters. And I think that makes a big difference. Where, like, Man of Steel is like, let's show how I would make Superman.
Man of Steel is what like the Ultimate's take on
but it's like, let's show, like, Zack Snyder, and Zack Snyder has said, like, you know, Aquaman sucks, we got to make him a big badass.
Zack Snyder said he doesn't like Superman before the movie.
And, like, that's the thing is there's I think you could tell when a director wants to use a character for his own vision, or when a writer's vision is of the way of why they love the character. And I think every single MCU film, even the ones that are weaker than others, I feel like they do a really, really good job at, like, at least selling you on why you should give a shit about them.
Yeah, like they portray the aspect that people love about them. I was thinking it's like, you can tell the writers of, like, the MCU, like the screenwriters, that they like the source material, not just, like, the identity of the characters themselves.
They like the characters, not just the IP.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a big thing. And I think it also helps that I can't think of anything that's consistently as good at casting actors and actresses as the MCU has been. Like, every casting choice they've made, to me, has been, like, so on point that it, like, almost by default defines the character for me. Just because, like, once I see them in a movie, I'm like, this is it. You get it. But, you know, we'll see if they could keep it up.
We'll see if Ryan and I and Darryl keep it up for these movies.
Oh, great.
Is that a sex thing?
Yes.
Yeah, of course. Okay. Of course it is.
Okay, I just want to make sure.
That's true. It's good to have consent. All right. Well, thanks for joining us during our interim emergency episode.
Yeah, if you want to see more content like this, we talked about this being kind of a preview for our Patreon, because we had literally, I think, one discussion like this on Man of Steel.
Yeah. No, we also did like, what role should superheroes play as a discussion.
Oh yeah, our superheroes should be inspiring, I think was the discussion.
We have recorded the other episode. There's just, like we said, like, it's not like it's there. It's just not.
Film on vacation.
It doesn't matter. To these people, it's the same thing. The episode's not here.
Yeah.
It exists. Like, we're good for it, man. Please don't beat us.
What I thought what I thought you were going to say is that if you subscribe to the Flying Machine Network and you hand us $5 a month, you can actually listen to a new podcast series that's Patreon exclusive about the Flying Machine hosts. Is that what they are, hosts?
Yeah.
They are the Fire Machine owners, Malcolm and Justin. They are now hosts again after a while of not being hosts. They are hosting their new show, Patreon only, talking about MCU.
Yes, MC University, which is a very good title.
So if you want to hear other nerds do like deep dives into the movies and talk about what they did right, what they did wrong, you should subscribe.
Yes, patreon.com/Flying Machine.
Yeah, as well as hearing us complain about Heroes in Crisis.
Yeah, if you want to hear us talk about modern comics, you want to hear us talk about general just theses on different superhero concepts like this one, go to Patreon.
Yes.
Yeah, and if you hate that we keep plugging Patreon, too bad.
Yeah, too bad. We don't plug it on the Patreon, so
make us stop if we got enough money that we didn't need to fucking worry about anymore.
That's not true. We're gonna be in the please like, subscribe, and comment for the rest of our
Patreon.
lives.
So you heard it here first, folks. We're just down here from here. We're just gonna be more and more shills from now on.
It's downhill. It's like the MCU. It's downhill from here.
Patreon,
eventually we can't keep it forever. We gotta go bad eventually. Sorry.
Yeah.
The Patreon's so successful that we shipped Phil off on vacation.
Yeah, that's where the money's going.
Yeah, we didn't even fucking use audio. Fuck him.
Okay, I think we've wasted everyone's time enough.
Yeah.
So thank you for listening. Oh wait, Darryl, do you want to do it? You're the big host this time.
Bye.
I give you the incredible flying machine.